Awesome. Well, you guys, welcome. My name is Heidi Holton. I live here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I am a Hoodoo practitioner. I'm going to be talking to you guys today about spiritual foot washing. This is such a sweet, sweet ritual, and I'm so happy and excited to share it with you. Um, so just a brief little rundown of this class. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the history of foot washing. We will touch on that. I want this to be a very hands-on class. I want to leave you guys with a ritual that you can do for yourself, for your community, for your friends and family. So by the time this class is over, you guys feel comfortable and confident doing foot washing on your own. So again, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to talk about what foot washing is and how it originated. Did anyone here grow up in a foot washing church? Anyone? Awesome. So you probably know a little bit. You've probably experienced this. You've washed people's feet. You've had your feet washed. It's a beautiful, beautiful, humbling, and just spiritual experience. Foot washing originated in the church. It is a Christian-based tradition. Now, I know a lot of us here are pagan and come from backgrounds where we grew up in the Christian church, and now that's a little bit of a trauma spot for us. I know for me, I grew up Catholic, and I live with that sort of guilt and shame that comes along with that upbringing. I want you to know, though, that what we're talking about today, you can apply this to any belief system that you currently have. So if you don't identify with the Christian tradition, or it makes you a little bit uncomfortable because you've had negative experiences in a Christian church, try to put that to the side and just think about this as a form of one human being honoring and taking care of another human being. So you don't have to be a Christian in order to appreciate and perform this ritual. But it does help to know that if Jesus were here today, I believe that he would wash the feet of any individual walking on this earth, regardless of their background or anything. So don't let the Christian aspect of it throw you if that's not your core belief system at this moment. But this did originate as a Christian tradition. In my church, I was raised Catholic. We would do foot washing once per year, and this would be on Holy Thursday before Easter. They call this Maundy Thursday, and this is the day after the Last Supper. Jesus washes his disciples' feet. It dates back to the hospitality customs of ancient civilizations. These are back in the days when sandals were the predominant form of footwear. And today I wore my most biblical footwear. I wore these little strappy brown sandals. I like to think that that's what Jesus would have worn. Maybe his would have looked like this. Maybe they would have been a little bit more like, you know, the kind that you see like ancient Romans wear, something like that. I don't know. I wasn't there. But back in the day, people used to walk through the desert in sandals. And do you know what happened to their feet? They got filthy. It's just a natural thing that happens when you're walking long distances. You don't have cars, transportation, your legs are your predominant form of transportation. So you're walking through the desert, your feet are going to get dirty, they're going to get stinky. And when people would go into the homes of another person, the host would offer them a basin of water to wash their feet. They would provide their guests a lot of times with a servant to wash their feet. Or they might even wash the feet of their guest themselves. And washing someone's feet was sort of considered one of the lowliest jobs because we walk through all kinds of dirty stuff, our feet get yucky, and who wants to kneel down and wash someone's feet? Usually that job was reserved for a slave or a servant. So that's sort of like where this dates back to. And in this hospitality system, like the practices, their customs, they would greet their guests, they would give them a kiss on the cheek, they would offer them a basin of water to wash their feet, and then they would welcome them into their homes. So it's definitely a form of being hospitable to someone if you offer them a place to wash their feet. Now, in the Old Testament, foot washing is mentioned a number of times. I'm not going to read those scriptures to you today because I'm not here to preach or read scriptures, but if you would like to look those up, you can find references to foot washing in Genesis 18:4, 19:2, 24:32, and 43:24. So that's way back in the Old Testament where they're talking about washing people's feet. In Samuel 24:41, this is the first passage in the Bible that talks about an honored person offering to wash someone's feet as a sign of humility. And this is where it really gets deep. People like Jesus, for example, offered to wash the feet of his disciples, and that was a sign of him humbling himself. So whether or not you identify as a Christian, maybe you are in the Wiccan pagan tradition, as a magical practitioner, I think for me, a lot of times I get lost in which one of my spells is the most powerful. I get really excited about the results when I do a spell or a ritual for someone and it manifests. I feel a sense of pride. I feel a sense of like this, I'm a powerful witch. And it's a good feeling. But when you humble yourself as a practitioner and you look at magic as a way to serve your community and to serve your fellow witches, that is when I find my power really strengthens. When I'm not focused on the results, but I'm focused on serving my community. And that is where I really love doing this ritual for my clients, for my friends and family, because it gets me out of that ego state of like, look how powerful I am. And it puts me on my knees. How can I serve? Does that resonate with anyone? Awesome. Well, that is very good to hear. So, in the Hoodoo tradition, a lot of times back in the olden days, and even today, the people who were Hoodoo practitioners, they were your pastors, they were your deacons, they were the elders in the church. So in the Hoodoo tradition, it's very, very linked to the religious community. And even now, you see examples of people who identify themselves as root workers or Hoodoo practitioners. They'll call themselves sister or auntie or brother or uncle. That will be like what their name is. Instead of, I just call myself Heidi Holton because for me, I don't feel like Sister Heidi sounds very authentic. Growing up in the Catholic Church, sister was like a nun. I definitely don't identify with that. But a lot of times root workers will identify as, like I have a really great root worker friend in Atlanta, Georgia, cousin Joshua. And it's that familial, that, church family type vibe that I think is really powerful. So let's see. So drawing back to our Hoodoo roots, I know this is a Christian ritual, and Hoodoo is very Christian based, but it is also a derivative of African practices. And so one of the distinguishing characteristics of African derived spells is that they believe, and I believe this too, that you can pick up negative energy and you can pick up yucky stuff through your feet. And it's not just the dirt that you step in. It's not just stepping on old chewing gum or dog poop. It is actual, people will lay down things on the ground for you to step in, and that will cross you up. So the belief in Hoodoo is that magical substances enter the body through the feet. Have you guys ever known of anyone who's been crossed up that way? You have? Okay, awesome. It's not the most common thing to hear about these days. I feel like in modern times, you don't really think about it, but there are people who will throw stuff in your path and you'll step in it and you might not have any idea because you don't think, hey, it's 2024. Certainly somebody's sprinkling goofer dust in my path. It doesn't even cross most of our minds to think about that, but it's something that still happens. So foot track magic involves laying something down for your target to walk onto, over, or through. And this could be worked for good or ill. So somebody might throw some love powder in your path to get you to fall in love with them. Or they might sprinkle some money drawing herbs in your path if they want to help you get a job. But more than likely, if someone who practices hoodoo is doing some form of foot track magic where they're laying down something for you to walk through, more than likely it's going to be a curse. I'm just saying, watch yourself. Victims report, if they've stepped in something like this, they might report having a wandering mind. They feel restless and like they can't go home. They might have no control over their love life or their financial situation. When you're cursed or crossed, one of the first things that happens is you notice you take a hit financially. Has anybody noticed that when they've had some crossed conditions going on in life? The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to need new tires, or you're going to need to have a cavity filled, or like something's going to go wrong. It's going to mess up your money. Or all of a sudden you had a great relationship, a nice and happy home, and all of a sudden you're fussing and fighting with your lover. These are things that happen when we've been crossed up. When you have been crossed through the feet, a lot of times this is going to be accompanied by swollen feet, swollen ankles, pain in the legs. You might have a staggering gait. So, you might start walking with a limp or develop gout. And there's even incidences where people say they've been forced to crawl instead of walk. When Robert Johnson, the blues artist, passed away, they said that he was found howling and crawling like a dog or an animal. The suspicion is, had he been crossed with foot track magic or something that he ate or drank. But there are instances where that can happen. I personally have never stepped in anything that I know of, but I also cleanse on a regular basis. So how do we get this poison and this evil into someone's body through the feet? Well, we sprinkle liquids or powders in the path of our victim. I'm not saying you should do that, but people do it. And these things can include things like hot foot powder, goofer dust, sachet powder. You can even use incense powders, chamber lye, so your urine, or anything that you can throw that's yucky and evil, snake skins in someone's path. If you're deploying these tricks, a lot of old-time workers will mix them with the local dirt or clay in the area so that it just looks like dirt scattered through your path. So you'd miss it. You wouldn't, like if I sprinkled like a sachet powder that was bright, like white, like baby powder, you would probably see that and maybe step around it. But if I mixed it in with some like Tennessee dirt, you'd be like, oh, that's just regular old dirt, and you might walk right through it. And you can also bury things underneath the path of the person, and that can get into their feet that way. I'm going to give you one really old time spell. Again, I'm not saying that you should use this to curse someone, but if you needed to, gum arabic, some unraveled hemp rope threads, and a little bit of sulfur powder or goofer dust sprinkled in somebody's path is really going to cross them up. Please don't do it. If you happen to step in something like this, I would recommend a thorough cleansing, and I'm going to show you guys a really lovely spiritual foot bath that you can use, and that is going to help to uncross you and get you back in your energy. Now, like I mentioned, it's not the most common thing in the world, anymore to have stuff thrown in your path and you step in it and all of a sudden you're cursed. That's not the most common thing that happens. There's many, many other ways that you can be cursed. You can inadvertently be cursed with the evil eye. You can have somebody burning candles on you. You can just have somebody who's jealous or envious of you and, like just puts that negative energy on you. You can curse or cross up yourself with just like having a negative outlook on life, and it can be hard to get out of that. And something like a spiritual foot bath is really going to help you. How do you know if someone needs this kind of cleansing work? Have you noticed when you are talking and interacting with people who have very, very low energy? Have you ever come across a person like that? A lot of times they will be withdrawn with their body language. They might have their arms crossed. They might be looking down. Their breath might be very like short on the inhale and long on the exhale, like that sigh. Someone who has low energy, someone who's suffering from depression, they might need a cleansing like this. Other people who can really benefit from spiritual foot baths are the elderly, people who don't get touched very often. It's a really, really nice thing if you have an elderly grandparent or parent, if they're suffering from dementia or if they're homebound or in a wheelchair, to offer them a spiritual foot bath. It's a really, really nice way to connect with someone who might be lonely, sad, scared about what's going to happen to them, on the other side, and someone who doesn't receive a lot of physical touch. Just that little nurturing holding of the feet and praying over the feet can really boost someone's spirit at the end of life. Little babies, if you have a toddler who is hyperactive and they're always running around and they're just learning how to walk and their energy is just everywhere, you can give them a spiritual foot bath. What a sweet way to bond with a little one, like holding their little feet and washing them. And a lot of times that can be very, very calming and soothing, especially if they're having behavioral issues, if you can get them to sit still long enough. Can you guys think of anybody else who might benefit from a spiritual foot bath? Oh my gosh, what a great idea. Yes, your pets, especially your little dogs who are running around outside in the mud. It would be really nice to put their little paws in the basin and just wash them off and give them a little massage. That would be so sweet. Yeah, so this really can be used for anyone, even someone who has high energy. I give myself a little foot soak on a pretty regular basis. I'm a Cancer, I'm a water and moon baby. So I love to do spiritual baths in general. A lot of times I don't have time to do like a full cleanse. So I'll fill up my little basin and I'll soak my feet in some like magical salts or, some herbs while I'm watching a show. And it's just a nice thing to do for yourself. Kind of like a little spa ritual. So I am going to tell you guys about the ingredients and supplies that you might need to do a spiritual foot bath. Really and truly, biblically speaking, if you want to keep it really, really simple, a basin of water, a bar of soap, and a towel. You can keep it as simple as you would like, and it's going to have a profound effect on the person that you're washing. You can make it a little more complicated. I personally like to add salt, Florida water, and holy water. I got this holy water in Key West at their little Basilica of St. Mary, Star of the Sea. That's where my niece was baptized. So I grabbed a little vial of holy water while I was there. Today I have prepared this basin with some flowers. And I picked some rosemary from my garden. Rosemary is a great protector, especially for women. It's a very female empowering herb. It invites peace into the home and is just lovely. So I'm going to throw a little bit of rosemary in this basin. I have some flowers that I got today at Trader Joe's just because I love going there and their flowers are always so lovely. I think it's nice to have an aesthetic looking foot bath. Another thing I will say, I have this enamel basin that I got at a little antique store. It matches my little chair that I take everywhere with me when I'm doing cleansings. And it's just, I like to work with something that feels old school. I like to work with something that is aluminum or enamel or porcelain. I would probably not personally like to use a plastic basin, but if that is all you have available, that's fine too. I just happen to be someone who likes to sort of create a vibe when I'm doing my spells, but anything will do. You can even do this in a big pot, a big stock pot from your kitchen if that's what's available to you. Let's say your grandma's not feeling good and she's, in her wheelchair and you want to wash her feet and connect with her on that level. You can use the stock pot in your kitchen. So to this water, I'm going to add just a little bit of salt for cleansing and purification. I am a very symbolic root worker, so I like to buy products that I feel like have symbolism. And as you can see, this little Morton Salt girl is holding her umbrella, and it is shielding her from the rain. And to me, that imagery of having something to protect you and shield you gives a little more power to the salt, as opposed to like the Publix brand or Sam's Choice brand. I just like to go with the one that has like the cute symbolic picture on it. But your mileage may vary. I like to add a little splash of Florida water. This is really, really great for cleansing. This is going to get any negative energy out of your area. If you guys don't have Florida water at home, I know we're all magical people here, so you probably have multiple bottles. You can pick up some here today. They're having a big sale, so why not? But this just smells lovely. So I'm going to add a little bit of Florida water, just a little splash to the basin. And then I'm going to add just another little splash of holy water. And as I'm preparing my spiritual foot wash, I usually, I'm not now because I'm talking, but I will be praying as I go. So when I add salt, I'll say, Lord, please bless and protect this client. Please, cleanse them of anything that is clinging to their feet. The same when I'm adding the Florida water. You pray the way that it feels right to you to pray. If you're not someone who likes to pray, you can just infuse this with your energy as you're stirring it. And I like the water to be nice and comfortable, not too hot, but this is kind of like a nice little experience to have. So I like to kind of heat it up. I've got a little bit of extra hot water here just to make it a nice temperature for the feet, and test the water just like you would a baby bottle. You don't want it to be so hot that you're burning grandma's little tootsies when you put them in there. All right, and that looks pretty good. So basically, the ritual is you're going to be washing the person's feet. I do a little thing with all of my baths that I do where I create a little doorway or portal. And can I have you scoot to the side? She's going to be my volunteer, so I can tell her where to go. I like to create a little portal of energy here using 2 tea light candles. And so I'm going to light these 2 candles. And again, as I'm doing this at home or for a client, I'm praying. A lot of times if I'm doing it for myself, I pray out loud because I'm by myself. If I'm working with a client, sometimes I'll pray out loud, but normally it's just in my head. So, I'll say something like, since I'm Catholic, I'll say the Hail Mary, just asking Mary to come in and purify this area, create a portal to the heavens. I might just pray from the heart. It just kind of depends on how I'm feeling. And so what's going to happen here is now we have a magical portal. Now we have a space that we can step through, and anything that happens on this side of the portal, all of that negative energy that we're washing away stays on that other side. And when your client steps through, or when you step through, or when your toddler steps through, they're cleansed and purified and back on earth. So this is sort of like a portal into the spiritual realm. So I'll have the person step through and sit down into the chair, and now they're on the other side. Now we can rid them of that energy and let that energy stay gone. And when they're done, they can get up and they can step back through the portal, and now they're almost like reborn, almost like fresh like snow or a newborn little lamb. So I am going to invite my volunteer to step through the portal and have a seat in the chair. Beautiful. Now you can place your feet in the basin. And you can let them soak their feet for a little while. If you're offering this as a paid service, you can draw this out a little bit and make it like a nice spa experience. I'm a licensed massage therapist and body worker, so I like to give a little foot rub, which you're going to get. So just a nice little foot rub. I know Reverend Roy, for example, is a licensed reflexologist, so he can actually apply pressure to the different acupressure points on the feet, and you can affect a lot of change in the body with something like acupressure. So you can offer this as a paid service. I tend to offer this as a complimentary cleansing for my clients when I'm doing other work for them. But that being said, now it's time to wash the feet. So I have this little soap. This is sandalwood. I like these little individual bee and flower soaps because they're kind of like a one-time use. If I were doing this at home, I personally use just plain old unscented dial soap because I love that clean feeling, and it really does get in there and wash the dirt off. So I like to use something like that, but this is also really nice for a ritual type experience. This is sandalwood, and in the Hoodoo tradition, sandalwood is used for cleansing and purification. So it's a really nice choice when you are doing a foot washing. Now, I am about to kneel down and wash a person's feet, someone who I just met today. I don't know this person. This is a stranger basically to me. Now we're friends. But what I'm going to be doing is really humbling myself. And you'll notice when you do this for someone, I can get very emotional when I'm washing people's feet. It's a very humbling experience. You're putting yourself in a position of service. And it can be very, very, very emotional for the person receiving the service as well. Because a lot of times people are not used to being served, especially if we're talking our elders. They've spent grandma and grandpa have spent their entire lives working hard and serving others so they can provide us with a better life. Mothers in particular, their entire life revolves around serving others. And, as I'm learning more and more about men, a lot of times men do not feel appreciated for being the provider and being that head of the household, and they're expected to do everything for other people, yet no one does anything for them. So a lot of times when you are receiving a service like this, it can be a very emotional experience. So, I've had people cry. I've cried as I'm washing people's feet because it is one of the most humble and sacred experiences that you could ever have. So right now I'm going to go ahead and do this foot washing. I always have a towel available to dry the person's feet off on. And I like to use a little magical oil, depending on the circumstances, which we'll talk about in a few minutes after I'm done with the ritual. You'll use different types of oil. Today I'm using manifesting oil. Reverend Roy made this one, and it's one of my favorite oils that I've ever used. It really helps to draw in all the things that we desire and helps us manifest what we've been thinking about in our minds and bring it into the current state of the world. So here we go. We're going to wash the feet. How's that temperature?
Great.
All right. So you'll do one foot at a time. You'll just take the foot in your hand, get your soap, just give it a nice little scrub. And you just want to make it feel good. You're connecting with the person. If you're doing this for someone and you're not giving a presentation, you'll be praying, or you might be talking to the person. You just get in there between the little toes. And then we're going to do the other side. We'll lift their foot. We have lots of rose petals and flowers today. And you can wash, if they're wearing shorts or a dress, you can wash all the way up to the knees if you want to, the calves and the ankles. It's really your choice. And so now we're going to dry each foot off. I'm going to take the first one. We're going to dry it off. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my manifestation oil and just do a nice little foot rub. If someone has picked up some foot track magic, if somebody has thrown some goofer dust in their path or, crossed them up, you might want to use an oil like Fear Not Walk Over Evil. If there's someone who is prone to magical attacks by someone in their life, that will protect them from stepping in anything else that's gross. Or you might want to use just straight up protection, maybe fiery wall of protection if they've been crossed up really bad. But you just do a nice little rub down with this magical oil. And then just have them place their foot on the ground. And then we're going to do the next one. I might have overdid it with the blossoms a little bit today. It's so pretty though. All right. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just add a few drops of magical oil. And if I were doing this with a client, I would probably in my mind or out loud be saying something like, may this woman step into the future and manifest everything that her heart desires. If there are any wishes in her heart that go unfulfilled, make them come into fruition as she steps through the light. I might pray a psalm if that is necessary. The 23rd Psalm is always a really, really nice one to pray. There we go, just a nice little rub down. And then I'll stand up, I'll have my person remain seated. And then once I've stood up, I'll invite them to step forward and through the light. Thank you. You're so welcome. And before they go, I like to anoint their forehead with just a little bit of whatever oil I used. So I just draw a little cross on their forehead and I say a little prayer as I take both of their shoulders in my hands. In this case, it's may you manifest your heart's desire. Thank you. You're welcome. So that is your basic foot washing ritual. Do you guys feel like that's something you could do, you could perform? Awesome. How did you feel when you were having your feet washed?
Good. I mean, a little awkward being in front of the class. Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's such an interesting word to describe it, awkward. A lot of people feel that way even in private. They'll feel a little bit awkward having someone serve them, having someone on their knees in front of them, performing a non-sexual touch type activity. We don't have that happen very often where someone just does something for us and we don't have to pay for it. Me as a massage therapist, I have a lot of people who come in and I touch them, I massage them, but it's a transactional thing. There is no transaction. There's nothing that, I want from you and nothing that I'm asking in return. I'm just humbling myself before another human being and wishing them well and wishing that any affliction that they're holding on to dissipates. So it's a really, really lovely ritual. I wanted to talk about what else we might do, what else we might use depending on someone's condition. So if someone comes to you and they're ill, if somebody came to me and they say they had cancer, and it's not like you're going to heal their cancer, but you can heal their heart a little bit. You can ease their fear a little bit, and help them to get through whatever it is that they're going through with just a little bit more compassion from another human being. So I might use, instead of manifest oil, I might use a healing oil or a blessing oil. I might, instead of putting rosemary and flowers in the basin, let's be honest, I'm going to put flowers in no matter what. I might put some like healing bath crystals, or I might use Epsom salt instead of regular salt, just to have those minerals, the magnesium and the calcium that can absorb into their feet. If somebody came to me and they'd really been cursed, if somebody had really thrown some yuckiness at them and they were feeling blocked in their life, I might use uncrossing bath crystals, or I might just use straight up hyssop as an herb, like holy hyssop as an herb in the water. If somebody came to me and they were having financial troubles, instead of using a manifest oil, I would use a money drawing oil. So you can really mix and match the products that you're using to accommodate what people need. And that's pretty much it. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, and this is only because I'm a licensed massage therapist and body worker that I tell you this. So we're in, we don't do a lot of hands-on work as practitioners. Does anybody in here as a magical practitioner do hands-on work with their clients? Awesome. It's very few, like 1 or 2 people raise their hands. And we live in a world now where, we're in the post-Me Too world where, if you're touching another person, you have to think about what you're doing. You have to do it in an ethical way. I have met some practitioners out there who are unsavory characters, the schmarmy guy who's like, let me touch your feet, baby. You know what I mean? You don't want to come across as like a perv. So, when you're doing this, you want to use integrity and you want to use like common ethical principles. So, know what transference is when someone is doing something like a massage or touching the body. There can be transference where the person you're working on sees you as someone who is more intimate in their life than you actually are. They take you out of the role of practitioner and they put you in the role of therapist, or, they might have developed feelings for you, romantic feelings, because like I said, people aren't used to non-sexual physical touch. So make sure that you're using integrity when you're doing anything that's hands-on. It really helps if you're licensed. I feel very blessed that I'm a massage therapist, because that kind of gives me some insurance. I'm insured through the American Massage Therapy Association. So if anybody was to be like, oh, she rubbed my feet and she whatever, I have someone backing me who could go to court for me. But just keep that in mind, that like people who have experienced trauma, people who aren't used to being touched, they might read into something. So you want to make sure that you're using a lot of integrity. For me, I like to have an open door policy when I'm doing something like this. So I would never go in a back room somewhere and shut the door. I would leave the door open, or I like to actually do this outdoors. So it's not like you're in 4 walls where no one's eyes can see what you're doing. That way you can't be accused of like taking feet pics, or, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be careful these days. And if you come across someone who is offering hands-on work and it makes you feel uncomfortable what they're doing, get out of that situation. If I had like rubbed her feet in a weird, creepy way, I obviously wouldn't do it in front of y'all. But like, if somebody did rub your feet in a weird, creepy way, know that you have the autonomy to withdraw consent. And it's just important when you're touching people to know that like sometimes those little ethical dilemmas can arise. But that's all I really have to say about that. Any questions? Yes.
So I know you were saying earlier about the different salts, like that you use, but what about the other types of salts, like kosher salt and pink Himalayan salt? Do you use those as well?
Absolutely. I think kosher salt would be a beautiful salt to use, especially if you grew up in the Jewish faith and you want to keep things kosher. But I do love kosher salt. Pink Himalayan salt would be lovely as well. It has a lot of minerals and it just has a nice look. I mean, like, I'm all about the aesthetic. So if you had like a little jar of pink Himalayan salt with a cute little spoon and you scooped it in there, you would have me. That would be like a spa experience right there. So yes, yeah, you can use any kind of salt that you like. Salt always has the power to do what you tell it to do. It is, to me, salt is one of the most important magical things that you can have in your household. I can't think of a single other ingredient that I have in my house that I hold in higher regard than salt. But any type of salt you can use. Yes.
There's a lot of controversy about holy water.
Yes.
Can you touch on that, please?
Yes. So, do you know how you make holy water? Yes, you boil the hell out of it. No. So I love holy water. I think it's great. I grew up in the Catholic Church. So I grew up where back when they still had it out in the open and you dipped your finger in it we don't do it post-pandemic, but you do the sign of the cross with the holy water. I grew up with holy water and I love it. It is not for everyone and you don't have to use it. If you don't want to go to a Catholic church and get holy water, you can get water out of the tap and you can pray over it and bam, it's holy water. I haven't been to church in many, many, many years. I'm not someone who, I will go to the Catholic Church every now and then. I went when my niece got her confirmation. But when my niece was being baptized, my sister was asking the priest, she's like, do we really need to baptize her? Like, she's so little. And he's like, you can just take her in the water at home. You can take her in the bathtub and you can baptize her yourself. You don't need me to do it. And I think that's sort of the new philosophy, where we don't need someone to give us permission to pray. We don't need someone to give us permission to bless water. When I was growing up, I used to do the entire, this is how I was meant to be a witch. When they would turn the body and the bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ, I really believed that transubstantiation was real. I really believed that it happened. And I memorized the mass. I memorized the part where, through him, with him, and him. I knew the whole thing. And I would do it. And I really believed that I did it. And that I would eat bread and my little grape juice because I was a child. But I really believed that it worked. So if you have the belief in your mind that you are going to make something holy and that you are going to make something sacred, or you're going to enchant an item or a liquid or an herb, you can enchant that item. You don't need someone to do it for you. I hope that answers your question. Yes.
A great deal of the ritual is through the ceremonial part of the chair, the basin, the candles. But in situations where you're not able to have all the parts and pieces to the larger ceremony, are there things that you can do, such as during travel, that would have the same effect, or is it all your intention for business?
You can do a foot washing however you want to do it. If you're traveling, you can do it in a cooler that you're carrying in your car. You can fill up an igloo cooler full of water and wash somebody's feet in there. If you don't have a vessel to put water in, you can go right to the hose and you can wash someone's feet with the hose. This kind of thing does not matter. I am a sucker for pretty things, but you don't need this to be pretty. You can go down to the river right now and you can wash someone's feet in the river. And you know what? That might even be more powerful because you're using what is available. And that's hoodoo in a nutshell right there, my friends. Hoodoo, when it was coming up in the rural South, they didn't have access to aromaGs. They didn't have Papa G and Reverend Roy ordering all of this beautiful stuff. They had salt. They had herbs that they grew in their garden. They had things that they found in nature. So don't feel like, because I'm telling you a ritual, that you have to have manifest oil. You can have olive oil from your kitchen that you prayed over, and that is good enough. Anybody else? All right, well, that is a wrap. Thank you guys so much for coming.